The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Star Sport podcast. I'm your host Matthew Hurley and I'm joined today, as always, by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose credit union, choose local, choose community. Now, it is the big weekend of Cork versus Kerry in the Munster Senior Football Championship semi-final. As if people didn't know, there hasn't been much media attention about it, but there is the Munster semi-final this weekend, and myself and Kieran will discuss the game in depth in this podcast as well, with other West Cork stories coming later in the podcast. So it is the weekend, Kieran. It is the big weekend of the rivalry between Cork and Kerry. Third weekend to the All-Ireland Championship altogether, after Cork obviously beat Limerick in the first round by 11 points 2 weeks ago. Do you think there's much hype around this game? Obviously, there isn't as much as previous seasons because of the trajectory of where the two sides have gone at the moment. But in terms of the promotion of this game and other games in the GAA calendar, there's a lot of games this weekend. But in a weird way, it seems like they aren't being promoted enough. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely sailing under the radar. It's obviously in the consciousness of people involved, like us in our jobs, the people in GA and so on. But I'd say outside of that, you'd be surprised how many people actually don't realise that Cork are taking on Kerry this Saturday. And it's almost a sign of the times. And I know we spoke about it in the podcast a few weeks ago, Matthew, saying that the lack of promotion in the GA or by the GA is just it's almost startling at a time when there's such a saturation of the market, and there's so many different sports looking for people's attention. Like, there's so much going on, and we have a traditional Cork v Kerry Munster Championship game this Saturday, and there's not even a peep about it in one sense, you know. Kind of, it's just it's strange. It's worrying too in one sense that I think that the GA just almost feel like the tradition alone is enough to kind of carry the promotion of a game, when that's 100% not the case. Like, you have to bang the drum. You have to get people's attention, especially the way kind of the world is now and how busy people are, and it's just so much stuff on. As in, it's almost the way it's gone, you know, and it's such a shame. And I know there's a couple of factors involved in why the Cork Kerry rivalry has diminished in recent years, and we'll probably get to those as well. But you just you need to bang the drum. You need to tell people this game is on, and I'd be really interested to see what the attendance will be on Saturday night at 7 o'clock, especially on the bank holiday weekend, Easter weekend. The timing of the game at 7 p.m. In Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So I'll look for the attendance with interest.
Exactly. So, and considering as well, there is a bank holiday on Friday with Good Friday, and obviously a bank holiday on Monday, which Monday, obviously, it's a 4-day weekend. So you would think the fans will come out and support the Cork football. But then again, the hurlers, we'll talk about the hurlers in a bit. They're actually against Clare on Sunday. But this game is also live on GA Plus as well. Obviously, you can buy that on a yearly subscription or the game subscription as well. But yeah, like, this game, it's kind of a weird one to kind of judge, because Cork lost by 2 points in 2023 against Kerry, obviously in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. In Killarney last year, it was a 3-point margin. But a lot of people are going on as if the people that are talking about the game, obviously, as if Kerry are massive favourites. Kerry are odds-on favourites. The last time I checked in on Paddy Power, the odds-on favourites to win the All-Ireland at this present moment in time. That, in turn, is not giving Cork much of a chance or much of a hope. And maybe many people are looking at other games this weekend. Do you think it's kind of unfair on the Cork team that that's kind of the media perception at this present moment?
I think what that comes down to is almost the trajectory of the two teams over recent times. So Kerry are coming into this game as the Division 1 league champions, and as reigning Munster champions. I think they're going for 5 in a row this year, yes, from 2021 up to now. Whereas look at Cork now. Cork haven't won a Munster Senior Football Championship since 2012. Haven't been in a final since 2020 against Tipperary. This Cork team is a mid-table Division 2 team, and that's been proven over the last couple of years, where it's just been mid-table finish after mid-table finish. Cork just can't take that next step to get back up to Division 1, and we're looking at 10 seasons outside of Division 1 for the Cork footballer. So there's certainly a gulf of class in terms of where these two teams are at, and there's no doubt that Kerry are the better football team right now compared to where Cork are. That's not to say that Cork don't have a chance. It's kind of it's a 2-horse race. Like even in a one-sided boxing match, like there's always both boxers have a chance. And like Cork have a chance on Saturday to do something that this team really needs, but also what Cork football needs as well, Matthew. It's been a tough couple of years again. It really has. Like we saw the under-20s on Tuesday night struggle to get a draw against Tipperary. That's seeing Cork sneak into the Munster under-20 final against a Kerry team that actually hammered Cork just last week. We'll wait to see how the minors do. It's not been a great run of form for Cork teams, especially against Kerry and at all the age grades in the last couple of years. So it would be super for Cork football to get that fill up and to get that boost of a win over Kerry. And like you're talking about a Kerry team that haven't played since the league final, and it's not to be patronising to the Cork football team, and it's not to say, oh, this is a good time to catch Kerry on the hop, but it really is a good time to try and plot an ambush of Kerry, because they'll be planning to peak later in the year. They haven't had a game in a couple of weeks. Cork have had the benefit of the win against Limerick just the weekend before last. So all the signs point to it shouldn't be as one-sided as the bookies or even some so-called experts out there might suggest.
And I suppose in a way, maybe this is probably the biggest chance of any for the Cork footballers to go on and beat Kerry at senior, because you mentioned there the under-20s. Clearly the talent there is kind of drying up. Obviously we'll see the minors in the next few weeks. But considering this group of players and considering the form they're on at the moment, 3 clean sheets in a row against Louth, Cavan and Limerick, 3 comfortable enough. Well, to be fair, like against Louth, they managed the game very well. Cavan, I know they only won by 2 points at the end, but they managed the game very well. They were always in the lead up until that last moment, away from home, obviously in Breffni Park that day. And then against Limerick, I know there was the red card through Sean Clancy, but Cork were very, very comfortable in that game as well. So is this arguably a better time than any in senior matches over the last few years to beat this Kerry side? I know Kerry league champions, granted, but this Cork team are on a bit of form, aren't they? So is this a better chance than any that Cork actually beat Kerry?
Like Cork definitely have a chance going into Saturday night. Like we're saying, Matthew, so many will just naturally tip Kerry based on tradition, record, and where the two teams stand right now. But like you said, Cork are off the back of three wins in a row. And okay, Kerry won Division 1 of the National Football League, but they weren't hugely impressive either. Kind of going into the last couple of rounds, they're in danger of going down as much as they were of actually winning the title. So I don't think they've found their best form yet. Kind of they're trying to kind of find that settled team to get them to where Kerry want to be. So I do think Cork certainly have a chance. A lot needs to go right. It really, really does. You need to have one of those days where the Cork footballers just bring it, and you need Kerry just to be that bit under form, kind of for the Cliffords not to be at their A game, and that is possible. That really is a possibility. But Cork just need to manage this game really carefully. As in, like Kerry obviously carry huge attacking threat with the likes of David Clifford and Paul Gainey and so on up front. You just need to keep it so tight and just make a battle of it. And I know this is sounding so cliched, and it's almost like that typical underdog against the big gun. But Cork need to stay in this game. You need to be in the game with the last 10 minutes to go, and then hope the Cork have the finishers to get the Rebels over the line. It's not beyond the realms of possibility, but like I said, Matthew, a lot needs to go right, and like that's from like quietening the likes of David Clifford up front, keeping Paddy Clifford quiet is such a big challenge, because we've seen over the last while, like, he's just almost become, that's in the heartbeat of this Kerry team, but he really kind of, he can make it all click, you know. He gets through the amount of ball. He really does, you know. And I think Cork, as much as David Clifford is the standout GA player of this generation, like, Paddy Clifford's importance to this Kerry team has risen and risen. So Cork really need to keep him quiet, because if he starts motoring, I think Kerry could be hard to stop.
I know, again, this is kind of a cliche question, kind of an obvious question in terms of an underdog trying to catch the favourites on the hop. But what do Cork need to do exactly to challenge this Kerry team? Is it to run at their defence, like probably what many Cork fans have been saying over the last few years, to trouble this Kerry team? Their full backline isn't that great. Is it midfield? The fact that Barry, Dan O'Sullivan and Joe O'Connor are kind of a new midfield pairing compared to Cork's with Ian Maguire and Colin O'Callaghan being more experienced as a pair. Obviously, Dermot O'Connor went off with an injury against Armagh during the league with a shoulder problem, and Kerry haven't been really dominant around that area. What do Cork exactly need to do? What is probably the main element that Cork need to get right to beat this Kerry side?
I suppose it's like a jigsaw. There's a lot of different pieces in this, but you're 100% right about that midfield battle. Like, Cork simply have to win midfield. Like, you have to win midfield against this Kerry team, and you would give Cork a good chance here. And like, you've the likes of Colin O'Callaghan, who's really grown in the last couple of seasons. Ian Maguire's one of the veterans of the side now at this stage, but he's been there, he's done that, and we just know how good he is, like that box to box midfielder. So Cork really need to get on top of midfield. Kickouts will be key here as well, and Cork just need to win the majority. Like, Cork need to get hold of the ball as much as they possibly can around that midfield area, and almost for them, like you said, running at this Kerry defence. Cork have got a lot of joy out of that over the last couple of years, you know. And you're looking at the Cork forward line, looking at the inside there, you've Chris O'Jones and Mark Cronin and Brian Hurley, and all those are potential match winners on the day, and they're all fellas capable of getting a score. But you're bringing it back out to the half forward line, and John Hayes makes a good point in his column in Thursday Southern Star. He's saying, is this a game where Cork need Rory Dean to start? And I can see the merit in that. Like, Rory's a big, strong, powerful man, like a big, strong runner. And we've seen how Cork have hurt Kerry when they've ran at them in the last couple of years. So is this a game that's made for Rory Dean, or the likes of Paul Walsh and Sean McDonald? Like, is in they need to run at Kerry. They need to cause them problems. But what Cork need to be as well, they need to be clinical when it comes to shot conversion. When you get a chance against Kerry on Saturday evening, you need to take it. You know, we can't be seeing poor wides or drop shots or shots dropping short. You know, you really need to be ruthless against this Kerry team, and always kind of put question marks in their mind. There's no doubt in my mind that Cork have the players to trouble this Kerry team, but what we need to see is a consistent performance, you know, where Cork are taking their chances and they're dominating midfield. You know, I'm not asking for the perfect performance, but I'm asking for like an improvement of what we have seen. And it's almost like they're starting to get there slowly, as in terms of we're seeing to see improvement in the last couple of games. But it's a huge step up from playing a Division 4 team like Limerick to the Division 1 Kingpins. That's why this Cork team really needs to bring it.
Can Cork take inspiration from teams that have troubled the favourites in the past few weeks? Like, you look at, for example, Antrim were very competitive for half of football against Armagh, considering Antrim are now a Division 4 team. Armagh are the All-Ireland champions. Dublin were challenged all the way by Wicklow and Ockram as well, and only lost by 9 points. And coincidentally, actually, Cork won't beat Limerick by 11, so that was more than what Dublin beat Wicklow by. Under these new rules, can Cork actually take inspiration from those? I know Cork don't want to be probably compared to the likes of the Wicklows, the Antrims, their Division 4 sides, but the reality is Cork are underdogs going into this Kerry game as well. And another question which kind of ties into this as well, on the two-pointer kind of thing, and head being the underdog, Brian O'Driscoll, his importance, 8 2-pointers in 2025 as well. Do we need to get him and Mark Cronin and potentially Brian Hurley in those positions around the arc to trouble this Kerry team? And this is a Kerry team, by the way, that haven't got a 2-pointer in their last 3 games. They've got 3 2-pointers in their last 5, and that was all in one game against Mayo in the league. Is there a possibility that Cork can use the 2-pointers to their advantage this weekend?
100%. When you put it like that, in terms of the stats that show that Cork are far more clinical when it comes to 2-pointers than Kerry are, and you've someone like Brian O'Driscoll who's been reining them in this year. Like, I think you've a super piece in Thursday Southern Star match where you talked to the Carrigaline football manager about the growing influence of Brian O'Driscoll with his new club and with the county. And you see Brian has developed into a key man for the Cork footballers. And John Hayes said it in his column last week. He thinks that he's vying with Colm O'Callaghan for the most important player in the Cork football team right now. So Brian O'Driscoll has a huge role to play in terms of almost like, we know what Brian brings in terms of application and commitment and determination, but he can really kind of set the standard and set the tempo against a team like Kerry. And if he can ping 1 or 2 2-pointers, like that's a great weapon to have in the Cork arsenal. So there is areas here where Cork can hurt Kerry. And like you said, the reality is Cork are the underdogs here. And like I was saying earlier, this is so early in the championship. You know, it is a good time to try and catch Kerry, because they'll be planning to peak for later in the summer. You know, they'll be hedging their bets that they're going to be in the latter stages of the All-Ireland series. You know, so that's where they'll want to peak. They'll know the danger of going up to Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday night to take on Cork, but they'd have enough confidence in themselves to think that even not at full pelt today, that they'd be able to see off this Cork team. And again, you can understand why Kerry think like that when you look at where this Cork football team has been in the last couple of years. But I also feel is in the hunger in both camps, and it's such a hard thing to try and explain hunger. But these Kerry players have probably more Munster senior football titles and medals than they know what to do with, you know. Whereas there's no current Cork senior footballer has won a Munster medal, and it's one they really want to win. And if we're being quite honest here, there's only 2 more competitions left this year for Cork footballers. It's the Munster Championship and it's the All-Ireland Championship. And this might come back and haunt me later in the year, but Cork aren't going to win the All-Ireland. You know, feel free to clip this up if the Rebels are up in the Hogan stand in a couple of months' time. So the Munster Championship is a far more realistic chance for the Cork footballers to win some silverware, which would be quite important in their development. You know, forget about Kerry for a second and what they are doing, you know, but for this Cork football team, and for the likes of the Brian Hurleys and the Rory Deans and the Brian O'Driscolls and the Ian Maguires, the fellas who've been there, done that for year after year after year, to win a Munster title would mean a hell of a lot, you know, and you'd hope that kind of determination and hunger and that want will feed into the performance, you know, and they'll just be like kind of dogs chasing this Kerry team and making it as hard as they possibly can. Because I do think the want of the Cork footballers to win Munster is greater than the want of a Kerry team to win Munster, because they've won it so often. It's almost like they wouldn't even celebrate it in Kerry if they win a Munster title. It's just a means to an end. It's just one more step in their journey to winning an All-Ireland. So if Cork can just harness that hurt and hunger and desire and that want, you know, I think that could be quite powerful. But to harness it in the right way, where it comes out as a positive on the pitch in terms of their performance, that it just gives them the confidence to do the right thing at the right time, but that's to make the right pass at the right time, the right shot selection, you know, and so on.
And you look at the full back line as well, and I mentioned the clean sheet stat there, 3 clean sheets in a row at the moment against Lough, Cavan and Limerick. The cornerbacks in particular, Sean Brady, who I think is 22 years of age, Neil Orton, 23 years of age, Daniel O'Mahony, I think around 25 years of age at full back, being the leader of this team as well, the vice captain to Brian Hurley. Is this the biggest game of those? Well, Daniel O'Mahony has really stood up to David Clifford over the last few years, to be fair to him, but in particular, Lordan and Brady. Is this the biggest game of their career so far?
It's huge. It's a huge game. Like, kind of, if you look at they're going up against a Kerry team in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in the Munster Championship, and go back over the years, Matthew, like these are, well, this before the rivalry has waned to become almost what it is now, kind of a rivalry without jeopardy, which almost isn't a rivalry, but this was always the big game, like Cork and Kerry in Munster. So for these two young cornerbacks. Like it's a huge game, but it's a huge occasion and a huge platform for them to show what they can do. And I think they take a lot of confidence after their performance in the league. John Cleary said before that they're probably just thrown in there, kind of with injuries and so on. But they've grabbed their chance, And look at them now. They made their Munster Championship debut against Limerick. Now they're preparing for a game against Kerry. Coming up against a stellar attack, kind of like I mentioned, the likes of Paul Ganey and David Clifford. Obviously David Clifford is the standout name in the G at the moment, but Paul Ganey he's coming to the twilight of his career, but he's still a dangerous operator, So you mentioned two matchup with Daniel O'Mahony on David Clifford, and that's a huge matchup, because I hope I'm not tempting fate here. I really hope I'm not. But David Clifford, he's never really enjoyed the best of times against Cork over the last couple of years. Like, we've seen Clifford lighted up in the league and the championship and so on, but as of yet, he hasn't tormented a kind of a Cork senior football team. Like, the hope is that night won't come on Saturday. So when you can add it all together, like, it's reasons like that, like, Cork fans can be optimistic about what Saturday night can hold, but it's still more hope than expectation. The Cork defence, like, they're going to come under pressure, and that's going to come back to Paddy Clifford. It's in who's going to mark Paddy Clifford, who's going to keep tabs on him, because once he starts moving, like, he just does not stop.
This is another kind of suggestion here. Matty Taylor has been suggested by some people, but do you think if Sean Powder's fit, could he be the guy to go on Paddy Clifford? Because you mentioned Paddy doesn't stop running. Sean Powder doesn't stop running either. He's given his all to Cork over the last few years. He's shown that he will give he'll give everything on the field for Cork as well, and he's a speedy operator as well, around the same height as Paddy as well, which is another factor, and obviously well able to look after himself. Could Sean Powder be the guy to go on Paddy Clifford?
Yeah, there's definitely merit in that. Powder would have the engine and the speed, and he'd also be able to turn Clifford around, turn him around and get him running the other way. Is in, like, kind of the last thing you want is Paddy Clifford kind of continuously coming towards the kind of Cork defence, or just kind of instigating the attacks like he does and getting involved and so on. Like, you want to turn him around and go the other way. He's just become such an important player for this Kerry team. I've seen him playing in a good few club games in Kerry as well, and there's just kind of work rate around him. He's just incessant. But there's also, like, if you can frustrate him, he doesn't like that either. If you can frustrate him and really make it a battle. We've seen that kind of streak to him before. If the Cork players can frustrate Paddy Clifford, he could become animated. Kind of like I said, I've seen that in club games, but he's just such a class act. He really is such a class act. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he performs and how Cork can negate his influence. Like, Matty Taylor could be an obvious one. Matty Taylor is another man kind of well able to cover the ground. He'd be well able to kind of stick with Clifford. It's just very interesting to see almost that rise of Paddy Clifford. This late bloomer to kind of intercounty football and look at the level that he's risen to now. But if Cork can limit him on Saturday night, I think that'll be a big plus and push this team closer to what would be a surprise win.
Talked a lot about the aspects of the game there, and we spent quite a while in talking about this, but just the one final and the most important kind of question of all, prediction time. Do you think Cork can do it?
Do I think Cork can do it? I think if everything goes right, Cork can do it, but a lot needs to go right. Kerry we won't see Kerry at 100% on Saturday night. They're on their own journey right now. I think this is a win that would mean an awful lot for Cork, but all that we said and all those reasons for optimism, like I said, a lot needs to go right, and it's that hope that Cork fans will have. That you hope, like John Hayes writes about it in his column, like, you hope that Hurley and Martin will nail all these kickouts. You hope that Mark Cronin will convert all his chances. You hope that the Cork midfield will win that battle. You hope that Brian Hurley can rediscover his best form and just get those scores that matter. So a lot of things need to happen, a lot of hope. All that said, like, and if you have to base the prediction in reality, and Kerry just are a better team right now, so I would be expecting Kerry to win. I'm going to hedge that by saying a Cork win would be a shock, but it wouldn't be a massive shock either in terms of where we are at this stage in the season. And if it is a stage that the Cork win the game, they have to go on and win Munster then. That might be a conversation for next week's podcast if we're reflecting on a glorious Cork win. But right here, right now, I'd expect Kerry to win. I'm going to turn it back on you, Matthew, because I can't have this now coming back at me. It's in like, oh yeah, he's after going for Kerry. Call it. Who's going to win on Saturday night?
Obviously, a lot of people watching this podcast would love us to say Cork would go on and win it, but as you said there correctly, you have to think about it in a real life situation here. Kerry are the much better team. They're All-Ireland favourites for a reason. They've won the league title. You've seen Jack O'Connor's record after he wins the league, I think in 06, 09, 22, he's gone and won the All-Ireland afterwards. And that's not to say Kerry will go on and win the All-Ireland this year, by the way, but that record speaks for itself. And I think if Kerry were to lose this game, yes, they probably wouldn't be too bothered in a way about a Munster medal or anything like that, what you said earlier on. But if they were to lose to Cork, there would be a lot of backlash in Kerry as well, I'd imagine. So I feel like Kerry could edge it. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be under. It could be in and around the 5-point mark. But I just feel like Kerry might edge this game, and it should be a very close one to call. But we live in hope, as you said correctly there, Kieran. And this game is also, of course, it is on at 7 p.m. in Supervalu Páirc Uí Chaoimh, if anybody can go down to it this Easter bank holiday weekend. Moving on to other aspects in West Cork sport as well, and the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship begins this weekend for the Cork hurlers. They're league champions, obviously. They go to Zimmer Boymet Park Kissogue in Ennis to face Clare live on RT2 at 2 p.m. this Sunday. Is there a lot of pressure going into the Cork hurlers, Kieran, in this game? We talked about the Cork footballers facing an almighty task against Kerry. This Cork hurling team beat Clare by 5 goals. They scored 6 goals in Ennis against Clare. This will not be the same game, as Shane Kingston alluded to in last week's podcast as well. This is a different kind of kettle of fish. This is championship rather than league. Is there pressure on this Cork hurling team going into this game? Is there pressure like this team have to win? If they do lose, there might be a different outlook on the Cork team after the game is finished.
For a start, I can't even pronounce what they've renamed Cusack Park to now, so I just going to refer to it as Cusack Park. My pronunciation wouldn't be the best at the best of times. So no, looking at this game, I think in terms of where this Cork hurling team are right now, it's the expectation. There's an expectation that Cork are going to do something in this championship, starting with the Munster series. Obviously, winning the league title there a couple of weeks ago, great boost for the Cork hurlers going into the real business. And this is where we can really start to judge where this Cork team are. Like you said, they put a good few goals on Clare in the league, and so on. But this is now where you'd expect to see the real Clare, the real Limerick. It's just, this is the stuff that really matters, in terms of the bigger prizes. I think for obviously Cork, the hurlers would love to win the Munster Championship, but the main thing is to get a ticket through to the All-Ireland Series, and that's the top 3 finish. So you're looking at winning 2 games. I think the Cork hurlers will do that. The home games against Waterford and Tipperary in the weeks ahead. But you want to get off to a good start and a fast start against Clare on Sunday. Clare obviously are All-Ireland champions. This is a rematch of last year's final that the Banner County won. Cork's record in the championship up in Cusack Park hasn't been great, but they're all records that the Cork just want to write on Sunday. And I'd expect the Cork hurlers, with the momentum off the back of the league, quite a settled team, kind of in good form right now. I'd expect Cork to get off to a winning start. It do that brilliant, all of a sudden then you're looking at the home game against Tipperary the week after, and we could be here in 2 weeks' time at you with the Cork hurlers 2 from 2 and kind of looking at a Munster final spot. So first step is be clear on Sunday, and I think this team have enough about them to get the job done.
Exactly so, and hopefully Cork do get over the line against Clare this weekend. It is a big game for both sides this weekend in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship. Moving on to league finals, and there was league finals in the Camogie and LGFA last weekend as well, and there was one win for Cork, one loss for Cork. We'll move on to the win first. The Camogie team beat Galway on a scoreline of 21 points to 10 in FBD Semple Stadium. Their clean sheet record stays intact, 6 games, no goals conceded. A magnificent record, really, for the Cork team as well. Obviously, new players coming to the fray for the Cork team as well, and players coming back into the team. Ashley Thompson getting 3 points. For instance, Amy O'Connor coming back into the team and scoring 4 points. And obviously, from a West Cork involvement, Millie Condon coming onto the pitch and getting herself a point. I think that's her first point in senior intercounty camogie, which is a brilliant achievement by Millie. But to beat Galway by 11 points and to concede, I think it was 4 points from play, no point from play in the first half, no goals conceded in 6 games. This Cork team is flying at the moment.
It is. It really is. It's all looking quite promising for the championship. It obviously kicks off on Sunday morning. Early start for the Cork Camogie team, but they're just on such a good run at the moment. Like if you look at their league form, and I know they lost to Galway in the 5th round of the league, but I just take that game out of the because of the context, like the Cork team had already qualified for the league final at that stage. They made a couple of changes. Galway needed to win and so on. So if you're looking at the other 5 games, I think Cork are conceding less than 10 points a game. Like you said, Matthew, no goal conceded in 6 games. It's quite ominous for the rest of the teams out there that when Cork stretched their legs, that they're that good, like to win a Division 1 league final by 10, 11 points, kind of against a Galway team who would be one of their main contenders for the All-Ireland title later in the year. I think that kind of speaks volumes for where Germany's team is at right now. When he was saying after the league final the last day that it was one of the best performances that he's seen from a Cork team since he's been involved, and first as a manager and also in the backroom team before that. So that shows that Cork are in a good place right now. The key is to keep that momentum going, kind of going into the Munster series, and then you have the All-Ireland series. So there's a lot of games from here until that touch wood that this Cork team gets to an All-Ireland final in August, and to get a chance to have a go at completing the 3 in a row. But it's been so impressive so far, and you'd expect them to keep that winning run going against Clare on Sunday morning.
Exactly, yeah. It's a brilliant achievement by the Cork Camogie team. Firstly, title in 12 years, and they're flying at the moment and look well on course to go on and win, or attempt to win, obviously, the 3 in a row in Camogie All-Irelands for the first time since the early 70s. In the LGFA, unfortunately, Cork fell to defeat in Croke Park against Galway in the Division 2 final, 2-8 to 1-5. They were 1-3 to 3 points up at half time. I think Galway scored nothing from play in the first half as well, and Cork seemed to be flying with Katie Quirk hitting the back of the net. But then 2-5 to 2 points in the second half from a Galway point of view, and the whole game changed. The 2 goals in particular from Lindsay Nude and Roisin Leonard kind of changed the whole complexion of the game in many ways. Joe Carroll, I'm sure, will be disappointed about the performance, and obviously the goals that they conceded and the loss itself in the Division 2 final. But 6 wins out of possible 8 isn't too bad either, Kieran. So it's kind of a case of get ready for the Munster Championship against Waterford and Kerry. Let's see where it goes from there.
Yeah, Cork are out Saturday week, I think it is, against Kerry in the opening round of the Munster Championship. So that won't be too long kind of coming up on us. So I think when the Cork ladies, okay, they'll be disappointed to lose the league final, but just look at the bigger picture here for a second. The Cork have won promotion back up to Division 1 at the first attempt. They've won 6 games. The 2 games they lost were both to Galway by just a couple of points early on in the second game of the league, and obviously the league final last weekend as well. But this is a very good Galway team. This is a Galway team that beat Cork in the All-Ireland semi-final last year and got to the All-Ireland final against Kerry. So for this Cork team at this stage of their evolution, and it's quite a young, new Cork team to be this close to Galway, I think that's encouraging for Joe Carroll and his management team, is because if we're being realistic, like this isn't a a Cork ladies football team that we've been used to over the last couple of years, full of like these legendary figures. This is very much a new Cork team that's kind of trying to find its way and trying to find its feet, and that's why winning all those games in Division 2, I think, will stand to Cork as we move towards the championship. It doesn't get any tougher than a start against All-Ireland champions Kerry in the first round of the Munster Championship, but then there's away games after that. I think it's Tipperary and either Clare or Waterford, so it's kind of a round robin in the Munster Championship. So it's going to be, for this Cork team, it's a big year. They want to go well in Munster, they want to go well in the All-Ireland. But I just see here, Matthew, while we've been talking, that just got some breaking news for our listeners, where the teams of the 2025 Little National Football Leagues have been revealed. In the Division 2 team that I'm looking at right now, 4 Cork players have made the cut. So Donny's Melissa Duggan has been named as the right cornerback, Shauna Kelly at fullback, Rosie Corkery at left halfback, and Katie Quirk left corner forward. So 4 Cork players have got on the Division 2 team of the year, and that's super. That kind of shows they've been some of the star performers for Cork over the last couple of months. So that's super to see that. And while we're here too, I'm just making sure that the Munster Senior Championship, that I get all the teams right. So Cork will be home to Kerry, then Cork away to Tipperary, and then it's Cork away to Waterford in the final round of the Munster Senior Championship. So a lot to look forward to in the weeks ahead.
A lot to exactly, and congratulations obviously to the four players that made the league team of the year as well from a Cork point of view. Just before we get to the end part of the podcast, just to mention Rory McIlroy obviously winning the Grand Slam in golf, and you might be questioning, this is a West Cork podcast, why you mentioned Rory McIlroy. Well, there is connections. John Murphy and Kieran Lynch, both obviously well-established West Cork golfers, have both crossed Rory's path in golf as well. So yeah, Kieran, West Cork is involved, I guess, in this success for McIlroy. Yeah,
I always say there's a West Cork link to everything, and obviously with Rory McIlroy, like, that was the most incredible night of sport to watch. The kind of I think the beauty of it is in the tension, the drama, the excitement, the ups and downs. It was over 5 hours. Like, Rory teed off at I think it was 7:30 on Sunday evening, and it was like 12:30, and it was into the playoff. Like, it was just incredible. So I set myself the challenge. I said there has to be some sort of link here with Rory McIlroy, and then obviously John Murphy, the Kinsale golfer, who's done great things over the last couple of years. And then there's Kieran Lynch from Baltimore. He's the PGA professional at Skibbereen Golf Club. Kieran was at an incredible junior boys career. Like, he was really, really successful. So I touched base with the two of them, and I got some lovely stories and pictures. So it's well worth checking out Thursday Southern Star for a nice kind of long read with Kieran Lynch and John Murphy. And I suppose how their paths, like you said, Matthew, have crossed with Rory McIlroy's over the years. And even on that, is there not hope in Rory McIlroy's story, the inspiration for the Cork footballers? He was waiting to get over the finish line, and he finally got there. He's finally a Grand Slam winner. So maybe the Cork footballers can take some inspiration from Rory McIlroy.
Possibly so. We'll have to see if the Cork footballers do this weekend. We'll take a quick break now, and after the break, we'll look at what's in this week's paper.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So it is that time of the week again where we discuss what's in this week's Southern Star, so Southern Star Sport, that is. So what is in this Thursday's edition, Kieran?
Absolutely packed, and like I always say, Matthew, there is something for everyone. Obviously, we build up to the Cork and Kerry Munster Senior Football semi-final. I had a good chat with Hurley O'Sullivan, the former Carbery Rangers footballer who obviously played for Cork, and he managed the Cork Miners last year. But the crux of the reason for talking to Hurley was, in his first season as a Cork senior back in 1999, he was man of the match when Cork beat Kerry in the Munster final that year. So it's almost to kind of pick his brains to go back and chat about that, but also his Cork career, and also the way the rivalry is now with Kerry and how Cork has slipped behind when it comes to football. So an interesting chat on that. Obviously, the Cork Camogie team will give them great coverage after their league final win. if we're bringing it kind of closer to home and in the county leagues, there was a good win for Clonakilty against Newcestown in a Division 1 West Cork derby. So we have a report and reaction from that. We also have a report from Argyle Rangers beating Orhan in Division 7, as well as all the news from West Cork teams in the county football leagues. We've an interesting piece with Bandon Camogie. They've brought back the Bandon Camogie club have brought back an adult team again, and they're really keen to give it a go. So Matthew was talking to people involved in that, so that's well worth checking out. Switching for a second to rugby, we've talked a lot in this podcast over the last couple of weeks and months about, I suppose, the success of school teams, local school teams in rugby. And we saw two more in the past week. Hamilton High School won the Mungret Under-19 Cup, while Clonakilty Community College won the Mungret Under-16 Shield. So that's two Munster school titles for two West Cork schools. So congratulations to them. Turning to soccer for a second, it was a busy weekend in the West Cork League with a couple of cup finals, and the big one, I suppose the headline grabber, was Drina Rangers B. They did it again. The Giant Killers beat their A team, and this time it was in the Parkway Hotel Maybury Coaches Cup final. So kind of a surprise win, but a brilliant win for the Drina Rangers B team, who've now beaten their A side twice this year, and they also beat Clonakilty Soccer Club. So they really are the Giant Killers of the West Cork League. And there was also success for Clonakilty Soccer Club in the West Cork League Premier Division Cup, where Chris Collins got the winner there. So we have a full page report on both of those. And just as an aside, this weekend in the West Cork League Premier Division, it's Drina Rangers B versus Clonakilty Soccer Club, and this is a Clon team going for back-to-back Premier Division titles. So I think Clon will be quite wary of that game. Also, we've news from the Skibbereen Rowing Club held their Grand League Regatta over the weekend, and it's their biggest one yet. So we've a full report on that, and it was just a brilliant occasion where you have the likes of two-time Olympic gold medal winner Fintan McCarthy competing with young Skibbereen rowers who are making their regatta debuts. So super stuff by Skibbereen rowing there. And also a load of motorsport happening at the moment, from Keith Cronin finishing fourth in the Carlisle Rally, and he's back out in the Circuit of Ireland Rally this weekend, so he's quite busy. So they're just some of the stories. Like, it really is packed this week. So whatever you do this week, just make sure to pick up a copy of Thursday's Southern Star.
Absolutely. And in the Southern Star as well this week, the West Cork Farming Award winner for April, monthly winner for April, will be announced in this week's paper as well. So stay tuned for that. And of course, for the great sporting content in the paper as well this week. And as usual, if you are further afield or can't make it to the shops, you can subscribe to the Southern Star e-paper and get the Southern Star on your laptop, tablet or phone. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/subscribe, enter your details, and you'll get an exact replica of the newspaper for less than €2 per week. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back again next week. Until then, take care.